Alrighty. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by welcoming Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to Alberta. Prime Minister, we're very pleased that you came, and we recognize your interest and your concern for our province. I thank the Prime Minister for coming to see firsthand what Albertans are going through during this economic downturn. His visit gives us an opportunity to showcase Alberta's resilience and entrepreneurial spirit. The people of Alberta have provided Canada with its economic engine for many years, but today we are facing some very serious challenges. We need a federal partner who understands these challenges, especially the economic and job situation in this province, and who is prepared to help. In my meeting today with Prime Minister Trudeau, it was clear that we have such a partner in Canada's national government. So I believe that we had a productive meeting today. I raised 4 issues with the Prime Minister. First, we spoke about the immediate steps the federal government can take to help address our situation. One of these steps concerns infrastructure. The province of Alberta, as you know, is implementing a very significant $4.4 billion increase to our $32 billion capital plan. And so we welcome the Prime Minister's commitment to fast-track additional infrastructure projects in Alberta. Another short-term step concerns support for unemployed Albertans. I asked the Prime Minister to consider ways to ensure employment rules make access to EI easier for Albertans and to consider increasing the length that the benefit is available. We also discussed other ways the federal government can help Albertans in the short term, including support for skills training. I underlined as well the need to make real progress diversifying our economy and creating jobs that are less dependent on and vulnerable to commodity price swings over which we have no control. The federal government has some significant public policy tools, like the Federal Business Development Bank and Western Economic Development. These tools could be used to help increase access to capital for Alberta businesses and help them innovate, grow, and create jobs. We also discussed climate change, an issue in which I believe we are very closely aligned. Alberta has moved decisively on this question with a coal phase-out, an economy-wide carbon price, and a hard cap on emissions from the oil sands. And we discussed how these steps fit into an overall national approach and how governments in Canada will be working together in the year ahead to get to a common approach beginning at the upcoming First Ministers' meeting in Vancouver. Finally, I spoke to the Prime Minister about the economic importance for all of Canada of addressing national economic logjams more effectively, particularly the issue of pipelines. And let me be clear, and I know the Prime Minister understands this issue is deeply important to us, and it is, as it is and should be for everyone who believes in the importance of building Canada. The Prime Minister knows we will continue to advocate with the friendly determination that Alberta is famous for success on all of these issues. So I very much appreciated the Prime Minister's interest in all of these important topics, and I'm very much looking forward to the progress that we will be making on them together in the weeks and the months ahead. So thank you, and I'll turn things over to Prime Minister Trudeau to say a few words before we take your questions.
Thank you, Premier. Let me start by saying what an incredible pleasure it is for me to be back here in Edmonton, back in Alberta, and meeting with the Premier to talk about the very real challenges faced by Albertans. Premier Notley and I just wrapped up a great meeting where we discussed how our governments can best work together to advance the well-being of Alberta families, workers, and businesses. We know that these are challenging times for Alberta and for Albertans. And I reiterated that the Government of Canada is committed to being there for the people of this province. Premier Notley and I agreed that our governments will take joint action in 3 key areas: jobs and the economy, climate change, and energy infrastructure and market access. La Première ministre Notley et moi avons convenu que nos gouvernements prendront des mesures conjointes à 3 égards: les emplois et l'économie, les changements climatiques et l'accès au marché. The federal government is committed to fast-track infrastructure investments for Alberta and indeed all provinces and territories. This will help promote jobs and growth where they are needed most. Our governments agreed to move forward as strong partners on the environment and the economy. During the upcoming First Minister's meeting, Premier Notley and I will work with the other premiers to achieve a pan-Canadian framework for driving clean growth and combating climate change. And finally, we agreed that we must get Alberta's resources to market in responsible, sustainable ways. This agreement is based on our shared goal of ensuring that there is proper market access for our energy products. Je suis très satisfait de ce que nous avons été capables d'accomplir aujourd'hui. Nos gouvernements reconnaissent l'importance capitale de l'Alberta dans le contexte économique et social canadien. I'm very pleased with what we were able to achieve today. Our governments recognize the vital importance of Alberta to Canada's broader economic and social fabric. We are committed to an open dialogue in the months and years ahead in order to do what's best for Alberta families, workers, and businesses. Thank you very much.
We'll open to questions now. Brandy, go ahead.
Hello, Brandy Morin with APTN National News. So during the election campaign, you told APTN that no means no when it comes to resource development projects with First Nations. Does this still stand with Energy East and Trans Mountain Pipeline?
What we committed to and what we continue to be committed to is a renewed relationship with Indigenous peoples in this country that respect inherent and treaty rights and look at First Nations and Indigenous peoples as partners in all that happens on this land. We know that meaningful consultation and partnership is essential to develop and to grow our economy, and we look forward to looking forward with Indigenous peoples to a brighter future for all.
Thanks.
Sylvain Bascaron avec Radio-Canada. Pouvez-vous nous expliquer comment, d'un côté, quand vous devez avoir des règles plus sévères avec l'Office national de l'énergie et de l'autre, vous vous engagez auprès de l'Alberta à conduire le pétrole vers les marchés mondiaux, comment est-ce que vous pouvez arriver à faire ces deux choses-là en même temps?
Une des responsabilités fondamentales du Premier ministre canadien, c'est de trouver des marchés internationaux pour nos ressources. Et, depuis qu'on est sur la fourrure, le blé dans les prairies, on a besoin d'exporter nos ressources. Mais au 21e siècle, ça se fait seulement en comprenant que ça doit se faire de façon responsable pour l'environnement, pour les communautés affectées, pour les générations futures. Depuis 10 ans, on a un gouvernement à Ottawa qui ne comprenait pas que de démontrer une responsabilité par rapport aux communautés, par rapport à l'environnement, empêchait de pouvoir amener nos ressources vers les marchés. Nous allons démontrer que ça se fait de façon responsable ou ça ne se fait pas du tout. Et c'est ce que nous travaillons avec le gouvernement de l'Alberta pour démontrer et pour pouvoir avancer.
Prime Minister Janet Dirk, CTV National News. With respect, could we have some details about the kind of financing you're going to help Alberta with? For example, fast-track infrastructure spending, or will those be revealed in the federal budget? Is there anything you can tell us today?
We have already been working very, very hard, not just at the Premier to Prime Minister level, but at the ministerial level, to identify projects that can be moved forward on, to identify, indeed, significant sums of money that went unspent in previous years that can be allocated immediately towards projects that will help Alberta's economy, help Albertans get to work, and indeed contribute to the growing economy, to the growing of our nation's economy.
Justin Giovannetti, Globe and Mail. Mr. Trudeau, what does it mean to other provincial leaders if Alberta needs to have access to $250 million of fiscal stabilization?
I think Alberta and Albertans have contributed tremendously to Canada's growth, particularly over the past 10 years. And our economy right across the country has benefited. Now Alberta and Albertans are facing challenging times, and quite frankly, Canadians help other Canadians when they're facing tough times. That's just how Canada works, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Ryan Templeton with Metro Edmonton. For both of you, this fast-tracked infrastructure spending that you're talking about, do you anticipate that cities will have to contribute to any projects that they receive grant funding for, as was the case under previous governments, and what if those cities don't have those dollars?
One of the commitments we made during the election campaign towards infrastructure funding recognized that this wasn't just about making promises that wouldn't later be fulfilled. Our focus through the election campaign, and even more so now, is on making concrete investments in our communities, in our regions across this country that are going to get Canadians to work, that are going to help in areas that need the support and the growth right now. Obviously, Albertans are facing challenging times right now, and this is an excellent opportunity to be investing in the kinds of infrastructure projects that are going to get people to work and build for the bright future that we all know Alberta has ahead of it.
If, yes, Alberta has lost jobs rapidly recently, but the jobless rate is actually around the Canadian average. Why, in your mind, if at all, does Alberta deserve special treatment?
I think looking at and I'll let the Premier answer that as well, but looking at the rapid change and the significant shock Alberta has suffered since the falling oil prices and the terrible impact it's had on far too many Albertan families, there is a need for Canada to step up and support Canadians who are in trouble and who are facing difficulties, and that's exactly what we are going to do. Alberta needs an active and present partner in the federal government to be there, and that's exactly what I assured both Premier Notley and all Albertans that our government will do.
Yeah, and of course, just to add to that a little bit, I mean, our position is, as you know, I mean, Alberta has always had tremendously robust employment levels. One of the outcomes of that is that historically, people in Alberta have had to work longer to qualify for EI, and they've received EI for a shorter period of time. And so a couple of the issues that I raised was whether those changes can be made sooner rather than later to ensure that Albertans enjoy the same access to benefits that are enjoyed in other parts of the country, knowing that a lot of people have already lost their jobs and that these EI benefits are going to start coming to an end soon. So that's the issue, and I'm hopeful that you know, the Prime Minister will respond to some of the requests that we've made. As I said, generally speaking, we're very encouraged by the message that the federal government understands what we're going for and what we're going through, and that they're interested in being an effective partner.
Hi, Mary. I'm Ibrahim with the Edmonton Journal. So in terms of the $700 million that Alberta has applied for, Premier, perhaps this is for you specifically, what do you understand a fast-track timeline to mean, and what would that kind of injection mean for Alberta's economy right now?
Well, as you know, I mean, that will be part of what we're already working on, which is our, you know, our additional $4.5 billion add to our infrastructure build over the next several years. But this is an amount of money that had actually been announced by the previous federal government in the fall of 2014, and for a variety of reasons, it never flowed. So what's happening now is, as the Prime Minister has said, through our ministers, there has been a very engaged conversation about what our projects should be, what the list should be, and how we can get this money flowing faster. And so we today were able to confirm that the federal government will start pushing it out the door as soon as we're ready to go. And so we really are talking in the matter of months, you know, weeks to months, very soon.
Brianna Carson-Smith, CTV Edmonton. Premier, I'm wondering about the $250 million. What tangible ways Albertans will see that sort of spread out throughout the province?
Well, I think that you know, it will help the government of Alberta. As you know, we've seen our revenues drop dramatically, and so what it will do is we'll move towards and it will support the work that we've already committed to do as a government in terms of economic diversification, in terms of promoting job creation opportunities, in terms of supporting innovation and new business opportunities. So all those things, as well as helping us to stabilize those important frontline services, which you've probably heard me say before, contribute so significantly to the resilience of Albertans. And you know, we've lost a lot of revenue, and so we need to try to find other sources, and this is one.
We'll take Fletcher's question, and then we're going to go to the phone lines.
Yeah, Fletcher Kent with Global. Premier, you mentioned that you brought up the issue of EI. Prime Minister, what did you tell her about the issues that she brought up, and then to the Premier as well? How important are these changes, and immediately, I guess, from Alberta's perspective?
One of the things that we campaigned on through the fall was the need to improve EI so that families facing challenges, people who get laid off right across the country, get better access to more help in a more timely fashion. And nowhere is that clearer that there's a need for than right now, right here in Alberta. And our Minister, Marianne Mahaichuk, and others are working very hard on making sure that the changes that we can make to EI will benefit Albertans and indeed Canadians who are struggling right across the country. Un des engagements qu'on avait pris dans la campagne électorale, ça allait être d'investir et de s'assurer que le système d'assurance-emploi soit là pour les familles qui vivent des difficultés, qui ont besoin d'appui. Et c'est certain qu'ici en Alberta, on voit beaucoup trop de familles qui ont besoin de ce soutien. Alors, notre gouvernement travaille très fort pour amener les changements nécessaires pour assurer aux gens qui ont besoin d'aide que nous allons être là par le système d'assurance-emploi.
We're going to go to the phone lines now. Operator, please put through the first caller.
Your first question comes from the line of Don Braid from the Calgary Herald. Your line is open.
Minister, on the EI front, I think most people in this province might agree now that the most helpful thing, certainly longer-term infrastructure funding is good, but EI funding for people who are out there running out and may leave the province and will lose their skills and have to learn them back later. There's all kinds of factors involved in this, but today the Alberta Federation of Labour noted that in Newfoundland, workers and Calgary workers have to work 630 hours before they qualify in EI. In Newfoundland, it's 420. May I ask directly, are you going to act on this and expand EI benefits, and how quickly can you do it? Because this would seem to be the thing that requires the quickest action.
This is certainly something that we are aware of, listening to folks in Alberta who are really facing challenges, and it's certainly something that the Premier emphasized in our meeting, and I assured her that we are looking at this and working to move forward on it as rapidly as possible, because indeed we do know that there are families who are looking at the coming weeks with a certain degree of trepidation, and we are certainly endeavoring to be there for them.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from the line of James Wood from the Calgary Herald. Your line is open.
Hello, Prime Minister. You're going to be in Calgary tomorrow talking with energy industry officials. You talked a bit about market access today. People are looking for concrete backing from the federal government or perhaps even fast-tracking of pipeline projects. Are there concrete actions that your government is looking to do that might actually help speed the process or deal with some of the jurisdictional issues that are taking place in relation to pipeline projects such as Energy East and Trans Mountain?
As I said many times, one of the fundamental jobs of the Prime Minister of Canada is to get our resources to market. It goes back to fish and furs and grain across railroads. Well, in the 21st century, getting our resources to market is done by doing it sustainably and responsibly. And unfortunately, for 10 years, we had a government that didn't understand that marginalizing community concerns, that ignoring environmental science by refusing to engage with Indigenous communities was not a way to fast-track pipelines. It was a way to ensure that they, in fact, wouldn't get built. We got elected on a platform of understanding that the environment and the economy need to work together, that developing our resources and getting them to market in a sustainable, responsible way is indeed the only way to get such projects built. And we are working very, very hard to restore public trust and work with municipalities and indeed governments like the Government of Alberta to ensure that projects go forward in a responsible way that earns the public trust.
We'll take two more questions from the phone. Operator, please put through the next caller.
Your next question comes from Rick Bell from Sun Media. Your line is open.
Prime Minister, I'm just going to ask a real simple question here that I think some people, at least some of my readers, would like to know. If the NEB greenlights the Energy East pipeline project, So that's if they greenlight the project after all the consultation and all the environmental assessments, will your cabinet approve it?
We're in a situation where we're not going to predict or shortcut any of the processes going through. One of the things that Canadians understand is we need rigorous processes that actually evaluate and engage with concerned citizens, with scientists, with Indigenous groups, and that's exactly what we are empowering the NEB to do properly. And we look forward to the process, and we will continue to live up to the responsibilities that Canadians elected us to do, which is to grow the economy and protect the environment, and understand that those two things do go together.
This will be our final question. Operator, please put through the final caller.
Your last question comes from Lucas May from 660 News. Your line is open.
Thank you very much to the Premier and to the Prime Minister. Speaking of Energy East, the National Energy Board did say today that TransCanada's application to build a pipeline was, quote, too hard to understand, tough for even their experts to understand. So a question to both the Premier and the Prime Minister, how big a concern is that?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite actually hear what the finding was.
That it was difficult to understand.
That their application was? Who said that?
The NEB, apparently.
The National Energy Board said it was too hard to understand. So that being said, tough for their experts to even understand. So just curious if that's a big concern, obviously.
Obviously, one of the things that needs to happen in order for energy projects like pipelines to get built is a level of public trust, of partnership with Indigenous communities, of responsible environmental science and oversight. And part of earning the public trust is demonstrating that there is a full understanding of the project and its implications. And that's certainly the kind of process that our government is serious about putting into place, because we know that a responsible government is a referee that ensures a level playing field in which everyone understands what's going on, and not simply a cheerleader for projects, because cheerleaders don't score goals, and for 10 years nothing got built.
Thanks, everyone. That concludes the press conference.